Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the U-East horizon and watched the stars through the main viewing screen. His ship had been traveling through deep space for 6 months now, farther from Earth than any human had ever gone before. The crew was tired but excited about their mission to explore new worlds and maybe find other intelligent life in the universe. Jake was a tall man with brown hair and kind eyes. He had been chosen to lead this mission because he was good at making hard decisions and keeping his crew safe. The other captains back on Earth trusted him to represent humanity well if they ever met aliens. Jake hoped that day would come soon. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez sat at her station monitoring the ship's sensors. She was the best tactical officer in the fleet and had saved Jake's life more than once during their years serving together. Amy was small but tough, with black hair tied back in a neat ponytail. She never missed anything that might be dangerous to the ship. "Commander," Amy called out, looking at her screen with surprise. "I'm picking up something strange on long range. Sensors. There's a ship about 2 hours away from us, but it's not moving." Jake walked over to look at Amy's readings. The sensor data showed a massive vessel, much larger than the horizon. It was drifting without power, sending out what looked like distress signals. Jake felt his heart beat faster. This could be humanity's first contact with alien life. "Can you tell if anyone is alive on that ship?" Jake asked. Amy worked at her controls for several minutes. "The signals are weak, but yes, there are life signs aboard. The ship looks badly damaged, though. Hull breaches on multiple decks, and their main power is almost gone." Jake thought carefully. Standard protocol said they should call Earth and wait for instructions before approaching an unknown alien vessel. But that would take weeks, and by then, whoever was on that ship might be dead. Jake had always believed that helping people in trouble was more important than following rules. "Set course for that ship," Jake ordered. "Full speed." "Sir," Amy said with concern in her voice, "we don't know if they're friendly." "This could be a trap." Jake nodded. "You're right to be careful." "Amy, but if someone is dying out there and we can help them, that's what we're going to do. Prepare the medical bay and get Dr. Chun ready for possible casualties." The horizon changed course and accelerated toward the mysterious vessel. As they got closer, Jake could see through the viewing screen that the alien ship was beautiful in a strange way. It was long and curved like a sword, with silver metal that seemed to glow even in the darkness of space. But it was also clearly damaged, with huge holes in its side and pieces of debris floating around it. "My God," whispered Chief Engineer Pete Morris as he joined them on the bridge. Pete was an older man with gray hair who knew more about Starship technology than anyone else on the crew. "Look at the size of that thing. It must be 3 times bigger than our ship." The communication system suddenly crackled to life with sounds unlike anything the humans had ever heard. The alien voices were deep and musical, but there was pain and desperation in their tone, even though the crew couldn't understand the words. "Can we translate what they're saying?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Danny Kim, their communications officer, worked frantically at his station. "I'm running their signals through the universal translator, but it's going to take some time to figure out their language patterns." 20 minutes later, Danny succeeded in getting a basic translation working. The alien voices became clearer, and the humans could finally understand what was being said. "This is Queen Lirale of the Zephyrian Empire," came a strong female voice over the speakers. "Our ship is badly damaged, and many of my people are injured. We mean no harm to whoever receives this message. We only ask for help in our time of need." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. They were talking to an alien queen. This was the most important moment in human history, and he was responsible for how it went. "Open a channel," Jake told Danny. "Channel open, sir." Jake took a deep breath. and spoke slowly and clearly. "This is Commander Jake Sullivan of the Earthship Horizon. We received your distress call, and we want to help you. Can we send medical teams to your ship?" There was a long silence. Then the alien queen's voice came back, and Jake could hear surprise in her tone. "You are not Zephyrian. What species are you?" "We are humans from the planet Earth. We are explorers, and our mission is to help anyone we find who needs assistance." Another pause. "Humans," the queen repeated, as if testing the word. "I have never heard of your people before. Why would you help strangers?" Jake smiled, even though she couldn't see him. "Because it's the right thing to do. Will you allow us to come aboard and help your injured?" The queen was quiet for almost a full minute. Finally, she spoke again. "Very well, humans. You may dock with our ship, but know that we are warriors, and if you try to harm us, we will fight back." "Understood," Jake replied. "We come in peace." Jake turned to Amy. "Prepare a boarding party. Medical team, security escort, and damage control specialists. I'm going over there myself." "Sir, I really think you should stay on the horizon," Amy protested. "We don't know anything about these aliens or what they're capable of." Jake put his hand on Amy's shoulder. "I need to go, Amy. This is first contact with an alien species. They need to see that humans are trustworthy, and the best way to show that is for their leader to meet with our leader face to face." Amy sighed, but nodded. She knew Jake well enough to understand that once he made up his mind about helping someone, nothing would change it. 30 minutes later, Jake suited up in his environmental armor and headed for the docking bay with his team. Dr. Lisa Chun carried her medical equipment and looked both nervous and excited about treating alien patients. The security team, led by Sergeant Bob Turner, was ready for anything, but Jake had ordered them to keep their weapons holstered, unless absolutely necessary. As the horizon connected to the alien ship, Jake felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Whatever happened next would determine whether humans and the Zephyrians would become friends or enemies. He hoped his choice to help them would be the beginning of something good for both their peoples. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and Jake stepped into the alien ship for the first time. The corridors were much taller than human ships needed, with curved walls that seemed to flow like water. Strange blue lights ran along the ceiling, giving everything an otherworldly glow. The air was thicker than Earth normal, but breathable thanks to his suit's filters. Jake's team followed behind him quietly. Dr. Lisa Chun looked around with wonder at the alien architecture, while Sergeant Bob Turner kept his hand near his weapon, but didn't draw it. They could hear sounds echoing through the ship, voices calling out in the alien language and the hum of damaged machinery struggling to keep working. A group of Zephyrian warriors appeared at the end of the corridor, and Jake got his first look at the aliens they had come to help. The Zephyrians were tall and elegant, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. They wore armor that looked like it was grown rather than made, fitting their bodies perfectly. Their faces were angular and beautiful, with large, silver eyes that seemed to see everything. The Zephyrian warriors held weapons that looked like they could cut through the horizon's hull, but they kept them lowered as they approached. The leader of the group, a tall female with intricate markings on her armor, stepped forward and spoke in accented but clear English. "I am Captain Zilara, personal guard to Queen Lyrily. The Queen waits for you in the medical chamber. Follow me and do not touch anything." Jake nodded respectfully. "Understood, Captain. We're here to help however we can." They walked through several corridors, passing injured Zephyrians who looked at the humans with curiosity and suspicion. Jake could see that the ship had taken terrible damage. Some walls had holes blown through them, and emergency force fields flickered weakly to keep the atmosphere inside. Burn marks covered many surfaces, and the smell of damaged electronics filled the air. The medical chamber was a large room filled with strange equipment that Jake didn't recognize. Wounded Zephyrians lay on beds that seemed to adjust automatically to their injuries. In the center of the room, on a raised platform, lay their queen. Jake stopped breathing for a moment when he saw Queen Lirelai. She was clearly the most important person on the ship, but she was also the most badly injured. Biomechanical armor covered most of her body, with tubes and wires connecting to machines that beeped steadily. The armor looked like it had been fused to her skin during whatever battle had damaged their ship. Despite her condition, her silver eyes were alert and intelligent, watching Jake's every move. "So you are the human commander," Queen Lirelai said, her voice strong despite her obvious pain. "You are smaller than I expected, but your eyes show courage. Why do your people help strangers?" Jake removed his helmet as a sign of respect and stepped closer to the Queen's bed. "Your Majesty, my people believe that all intelligent life has value. When someone is in trouble, we help if we can. It's that simple." The Queen studied Jake's face carefully. "Simple," she repeated slowly. "Nothing is simple in war, human. Do you know why my ship is damaged?" "No, Your Majesty. We only know that you sent a distress signal and that your people are hurt." Queen Lirelai closed her eyes for a moment, and Jake could see the pain she was trying to hide. "My own people did this to me. The Zephyrian Empire is tearing itself apart in civil war. Half of my military leaders decided I was too weak to rule and tried to kill me. They destroyed my flagship and left me to die in space." Dr. Chun stepped forward with her medical scanner. "Your Majesty, may I examine your injuries? I might be able to help with the pain management at least." The Queen looked at the human doctor with surprise. "You would treat an alien? Your medicine may not work on Zephyrian biology." "Maybe not," Dr. Chun admitted, "but I won't know unless I try. And every living being deserves medical care when they're suffering." Queen Lirelai nodded slowly. "Very well, human doctor. But know that this armor cannot be removed. It is the only thing keeping me alive, but it is also slowly killing me. My own healers say there is nothing they can do." Dr. Chun began scanning the Queen with her equipment while Jake watched. The readings showed that the biomechanical armor was indeed integrated with the Queen's nervous system and major organs. It was incredibly advanced technology, but it was also causing constant pain and slowly poisoning her blood. "This is remarkable," Dr. Chun whispered to Jake. "The armor is keeping her heart and lungs working, but it's also releasing toxins that her body can't process. She's basically living on borrowed time." Jake felt angry at the thought of someone being trapped in armor that was both saving and killing them. "Can we do anything to help?" "Maybe. Our medical technology works differently than theirs. We might be able to create filters for the toxins or find ways to reduce the pain. But it would take time and cooperation between our medical teams." Jake turned back to Queen Lirelai. "Your Majesty, our doctor thinks she might be able to help you, but she would need to work with your healers. Would you allow that?" The Queen was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "In my culture, showing weakness is shameful. A ruler who cannot remove her own armor is not fit to lead. That is why my people turned against me. That's not weakness." Jake said firmly, "That's survival. You're fighting to stay alive despite impossible odds. Where I come from, we call that strength." The Queen's silver eyes widened slightly. "You see strength where my own people see failure? I see someone who refuses to give up, even when everything seems hopeless. That takes more courage than winning 100 battles." For the first time since Jake had met her, Queen Lirelai smiled. It was a small smile, but it transformed her face completely. "You are a strange species, humans. But perhaps that is not a bad thing." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Captain Zelara rushed into the medical chamber with her, weapon drawn. My queen, our sensors have detected 3 warships approaching. They bear the markings of the rebellion. Queen Lyralei's face went pale. They followed me here. They mean to finish what they started. Jake felt his stomach drop. The aliens who had tried to kill the queen were coming, and the Horizon was trapped. Alongside the damaged Zephyrian ship, he had 2 choices: run and leave the queen to die, or stay and fight against impossible odds. How long until they arrive? Jake asked Captain Zilara. 20 minutes, perhaps less. Jake activated his communication device. Jake to Horizon. Amy, are you reading this? Yes, sir. We're tracking 3 large ships heading our way at high speed. They're much bigger than us, and they're armed for war. Jake looked at Queen Lyralei, who was watching him with curious eyes. She expected him to run. Any sensible commander would take his ship and crew to safety and leave the aliens to their fate. But Jake had never been good at abandoning people who needed help. Amy, prepare for battle stations. We're not leaving. Sir, are you sure about this? We're outnumbered 3-1. Jake looked at the Queen, who was staring at him with complete shock. Yes, I'm sure. These people need our help, and that's what we're going to give them. Queen Lyralei struggled to sit up despite her injuries. Human, you cannot fight 3 Zephyrian warships with 1 small vessel. You will die for nothing. Jake smiled at her. Maybe, but maybe not. Humans are pretty good at beating impossible odds when we have something worth fighting for. The Queen's eyes filled with something Jake couldn't quite identify. You would risk your life and your crew's lives for me? For strangers you met only. Hours ago? Yes, Your Majesty. Because that's what friends do for each other. The word friends seemed to hit the Queen like a physical blow. She lay back down slowly, tears forming in her silver eyes. No one has called me friend in many years. Jake squeezed her hand gently. Well, you have friends now, and we don't abandon our friends. Jake ran through the corridors of the Zephyrian ship back to his boarding party. His mind was racing with battle plans and desperate calculations. 3 enemy warships against 1 human explorer vessel was not good odds, but Jake had learned long ago that battles were won by thinking differently, not just by having bigger guns. All teams back to the Horizon immediately, Jake called into his communicator. We have incoming hostiles and very little time. Dr. Chun grabbed Jake's arm as they hurried toward the airlock. Commander, I need more time with the Queen. Her condition is worse than she's letting on. If we don't start treatment soon, the armor will kill her within days. We'll worry about medical treatment after we survive the next hour, Jake replied grimly. Right now, staying alive is the best medicine we can give anyone. They reached the Horizon just as the 3 enemy ships appeared on the long-range sensors. Jake could see them through the bridge viewing screen. Sleek predators built for war, each one bristling with weapons that could tear his ship apart. They moved in perfect formation, closing the distance with cold efficiency. Amy was waiting for him on the bridge with a tactical analysis ready. Sir, those ships are bad news. Each one has twice our firepower and 3 times our armor. Our only advantage is speed and maneuverability. Jake studied the enemy formation on the tactical display. The 3 ships were approaching in a standard attack pattern, designed to surround and destroy their target quickly. It was effective, but predictable, and predictability was something Jake could use. What's the status of the Queen's ship? Jake asked. Dead in space, reported Pete Morris from the engineering station. Their main power is gone, and their weapons are offline. But their hull is still mostly intact. Jake smiled suddenly, an idea forming in his mind. Amy, can we use the Zephyrian ship as cover? Maybe, but they'll just go around it. We can't hide behind a damaged ship forever. I'm not planning to hide, Jake said. Pete, Can you reroute power from our life support systems to weapons and shields? Pete looked worried. Yes, but that would give us maybe 10 minutes of air before we suffocate. 10 minutes should be enough. Jake turned to the communication station. Danny, open a channel to Queen Lirelei. The Queen's face appeared on the main screen, still lying in her medical bed, but alert and focused. Commander Jake, my sensors. Show the enemy ships will be in weapons range in 5 minutes. You should run while you still can. Not happening, Your Majesty, but I need to ask you something important. Do you know the weak points on those ships? Queen Lirelei's eyes widened. With understanding. You mean to fight them. You are either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, Jake admitted. But if we're going to have a chance, I need to know where to hit them. The Queen was quiet for a moment, and Jake could see the internal struggle on her face. She was being asked to betray her own people's military secrets to help aliens she had just met. Finally, she spoke. The engine sections are heavily shielded, but there is a weak point where the power conduits connect to the main hull. If you can hit that spot with enough force, it will disable their faster-than-light drive and reduce their power by half. Can you mark those locations on our targeting system? Yes, but Commander, even with that knowledge, you are still outnumbered. One hit from their main guns will destroy your ship. Jake grinned. Then we'll just have to make sure they don't hit us. The enemy ships opened fire while they were still at long range, sending streams of energy that lit up space like deadly fireworks. Jake had expected this. Zephyrian military doctrine favored overwhelming firepower over tactical finesse. The shots missed the horizon by hundreds of meters, exactly as Jake had hoped. All power to engines, Jake ordered. Take us straight at the lead ship. Amy looked at him like he had lost his mind. Sir, that's suicide. No, that's psychology. They expect us to run or hide. They don't expect a smaller ship to charge directly at them. The horizon accelerated toward the enemy formation at maximum speed. The lead Zephyrian ship fired again, but Jake had already changed course, weaving between the energy blasts like a fighter pilot instead of a starship captain. The enemy ships tried to adjust their formation, but they were built for long-range combat, not close-quarters maneuvering. Now, Jake shouted, hit the weak point on the lead ship. Amy fired the Horizon's main guns at exactly the spot Queen Lirelei had indicated. The energy beam struck the connection point between the engine and hull, and the entire rear section of the enemy ship exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. The warship spun out of control, its lights flickering as power systems failed throughout the vessel. One down, 2 to go, Jake said, but he knew the hardest part was still coming. The remaining enemy ships had learned from their mistake and were spreading out to surround the horizon. Jake, Queen Lirelei's voice came over the communication system. I am powering up my ship's self-destruct system. If you can lure one of the remaining ships close to my vessel, I can take it with me. No, Jake said immediately. We're not sacrificing anyone today. There has to be another way. Commander, my ship is already dying, and so am I. Let me do this one thing to help. The people who showed me kindness. Jake felt a cold knot in his stomach. The Queen was right that her sacrifice would give them a better chance. But everything in him rebelled against the idea of letting someone die. For his mission, the second enemy ship came around the Queen's damaged vessel, firing continuously at the horizon. Jake dodged most of the shots, but one blast clipped their starboard engine, sending shockwaves through the ship. Emergency alarms blared as systems failed throughout the vessel. Hull breach. On Deck 3, Pete reported. We're losing atmosphere fast. The third enemy ship moved to block their escape route, trapping the horizon between two opponents. Jake realized with sinking certainty that they were out of options. His crew was going to die because he had chosen to help strangers instead of following safe protocols. Then Queen Lirelei made the choice for all of them. "It has been an honor to call you friend, Commander Jake Sullivan." The Queen's ship erupted in a brilliant explosion that lit up space for thousands of kilometers. The blast caught the second enemy warship at close range, ripping through its hull and sending it tumbling into the darkness. But the explosion also damaged the horizon, knocking out their remaining engine and leaving them drifting helplessly. The last enemy ship moved in for the kill, its weapons charging for a final shot that would end the battle. Jake closed his eyes and waited for the end, hoping that his crew would at least be remembered as heroes who tried to do the right thing. But the killing shot never came. Instead, Jake heard Amy gasp in surprise. "Sir, you need to see this." Jake opened his eyes and looked at the main screen. The third enemy ship was retreating at maximum speed, running away from the battle they had been winning just moments before. "Why are they leaving?" Jake asked in confusion. Danny was monitoring alien communication channels and looked up with amazement. "Sir, I'm picking up transmissions from other Zephyrian ships. Word of the battle is spreading through their fleet. They're saying that aliens fought to protect their queen, that someone finally showed her the honor she deserved." Jake felt tears forming in his eyes as he understood what had happened. Queen Lirelei's sacrifice had not just saved his ship, it had saved her entire people by showing them what real honor looked like. The Civil War was ending because enemies had learned to see each other as friends. But Jake also felt the crushing weight of loss. The queen who had called him friend was gone, and he would never be able to tell her how much her courage had meant to him and his crew. The silence after the battle felt heavier than the explosions that had come before. Jake stood on the bridge of the damaged horizon, staring at the empty space where Queen Lirelei's ship had been just minutes earlier. All that remained was scattered debris and the fading glow of the explosion that had saved their lives. "Damage report," Jake said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Pete Morris worked at his console with grim efficiency. "We've lost main engines and half our power grid. Hull breaches on 3 decks, but the emergency force fields are holding. We're alive, but we're not going anywhere fast." Amy was monitoring the retreating enemy ship on her sensors. "The remaining Zephyrian warship is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're calling off the attack and requesting a ceasefire. It sounds like they want to talk." Jake nodded, but didn't feel any satisfaction from their victory. The Queen had paid the ultimate price to save people she barely knew, and now Jake had to figure out how to honor that sacrifice. "Danny, can you establish communication with the surviving Zephyrians?" "Already working on it, sir. I'm getting responses from multiple ships in the area. They all want to know what happened to their queen." The main viewing screen flickered to life, showing the face of a Zephyrian male with the bearing of a military officer. His silver eyes were filled with confusion and something that might have been shame. "I am Admiral Thane of the Zephyrian Third Fleet. Human commander, what did you do to our queen?" Jake felt a flash of anger at the accusation in the alien's voice. "We tried to save her life, Admiral. Your queen died protecting my ship from your own people who are trying to kill her." Admiral Thane's expression changed, the hostility replaced by shock. "Queen Lirelei is dead?" "She sacrificed herself to stop your civil war," Jake said firmly. "She gave her life so that aliens and Zephyrians could learn to be friends instead of enemies." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Behind him, Jake could see other Zephyrian officers listening to the conversation with growing amazement. "Commander, I need to ask you something important. Why did you risk your ship to protect our queen? You had no reason to involve yourself in our conflict." Jake thought about how to explain human values to a species that seemed to understand only strength and conquest. "Admiral, My people believe that every intelligent life has worth. When we found your queen dying in space, we didn't see an alien or an enemy. We saw someone who needed help, and helping people in trouble is what we do, even when it means risking your own lives. Especially then, Jake replied. True strength isn't about being the strongest or having the biggest weapons. It's about being willing to sacrifice for others, even strangers. Admiral Thane closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, Jake could see tears there. Our queen tried to tell us this, but we would not listen. We called her weak because she could not remove her armor, because she needed machines to keep her alive. We thought strength meant perfection. Your queen was the strongest person I've ever met. Jake said with conviction. She was dying in agony, trapped in armor that was slowly killing her, and she still found the courage to sacrifice herself for others. If that's not strength, I don't know what is. Dr. Chun approached Jake with a concerned expression. Commander, we're receiving distress signals from other ships in the area. There are Zephyrian survivors from the battle who need medical attention, including some from the Queen's original crew. Jake didn't hesitate. Prepare medical teams. We help everyone who needs it, no matter which side they were on. Admiral Thane heard this exchange and looked even more amazed. You would treat our wounded? Even the ones who tried to kill you? They're not our enemies anymore, Jake said simply. The Queen's sacrifice ended your civil war. Now we're all just people trying to help each other survive. Over the next several hours, the horizon became a floating hospital as human and Zephyrian medical teams worked together to treat the wounded from both sides of the conflict. Dr. Chun found herself learning alien biology on the fly, while Zephyrian healers marveled at human medical technology that could repair damage they had thought was permanent. Jake spent most of his time moving between the medical bays, talking to injured Zephyrians and learning about their culture. Many of them had fought against their queen in the Civil War, believing she was too weak to lead their empire. Now they were beginning to understand that they had been wrong about what weakness really meant. Captain Zelara, the Queen's former bodyguard, was among the survivors rescued from the debris of the royal ship. She had been badly injured in the explosion, but was alive thanks to her emergency armor. When Jake visited her in the medical bay, she grabbed his hand with surprising strength. Commander Jake, she said, her voice rough with emotion. I failed to protect my queen, but you succeeded where I could not. You showed her that she was valued, that someone saw her true strength. Jake squeezed her hand gently. She saved herself, Captain. And she saved all of us by showing everyone what real courage looks like. Captain Zelara nodded slowly. The Queen spoke of you in her final moments. She said you were the first person in years to tell her she was beautiful, even trapped in that cursed armor. Jake felt his throat tighten with grief. She was beautiful, not because of how she looked, but because of who she was inside. The armor didn't hide that. It just made her strength more obvious. Those were almost her exact words, Captain Zelara whispered. She said you taught her that beauty comes from refusing to give up, even when everything seems hopeless. As the hours passed, more Zephyrian ships arrived in the area, drawn by reports of the battle and their queen's death. But instead of continuing the civil war, something unprecedented happened. The opposing fleets began working together to rescue survivors and care for the wounded. The Queen's sacrifice had accomplished what years of fighting could not. It had reminded her people of their shared values. Admiral Thane requested a private meeting with Jake in the Horizons conference room. The Zephyrian officer looked older than he had during their first conversation, as if the weight of recent events had aged him years in a matter of hours. Commander, I must tell you something, Admiral Thane began. I was one of the leaders who declared Queen Lirelei unfit to rule. I convinced many others that her weakness would destroy our empire. Jake studied the alien's face, seeing genuine remorse there. What changed your mind? Watching you risk everything to protect her. Seeing her choose to die, rather than let harm come to the people who had shown her kindness. We were so focused on her physical limitations that we forgot to see the strength of her spirit. Admiral Thane stood and walked to the window, looking out at the mixed fleet of human and Zephyrian ships working together in space. Our queen was right about many things. She believed our empire had grown too proud, too focused on conquest and domination. She wanted us to learn from other species, to find new definitions of strength and honor. It's not too late, Jake said. Your people can still choose to follow her vision. The Admiral turned back to Jake with determination in his silver eyes. That is exactly what we intend to do. Commander, I am formally requesting that you accept the position of advisor to the Zephyrian High Council. Help us learn what your queen tried to teach us. Jake felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders again, but this time it felt less like a burden and more like an opportunity. Queen Lirale had died believing that humans and Zephyrians could be friends, and now her. People were asking him to help make that dream a reality. 3 months had passed since the battle that ended the Zephyrian Civil War, and Jake Sullivan found himself in a position he had never imagined. The Horizon now traveled with a small fleet of Zephyrian ships, exploring the far reaches of space. As part of the first joint human-alien expedition in history, Jake stood in his ready room, looking at a holographic star map that showed their current location deep in uncharted territory. They had discovered 6 new star systems in the past month, including 2 with planets that might support life. The mission that had started as a simple exploration had become something much more important, proof that different species could work together toward common goals. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. Come in, Jake called. Captain Zellara entered, moving with the fluid grace that all Zephyrians seemed to possess. She had recovered fully from her injuries, and now served as the Zephyrian military liaison to the human crew. More importantly, she had become one of Jake's closest friends and advisors. Commander, we are receiving a transmission from Earth. Admiral Parker wants to speak with you about the mission status report. Jake nodded. I'll take it in here. And Zellara, we've been working together for months now. You can call me Jake when we're not in formal meetings. Zellara smiled, an expression that had become much more common among the Zephyrians since their civil war ended. Very well, Jake. I will patch the transmission through to your office. The holographic display switched from the star map to show Admiral Patricia Parker, the head of Earth's Deep Space Exploration Command. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had given Jake his original mission to explore beyond known space. Commander Sullivan, Admiral Parker began, I've been reading your reports with great interest. The alliance you've forged with the Zephyrians has exceeded all our expectations. Thank you, Admiral. The Zephyrians have been excellent partners. Their technology complements ours perfectly, and their knowledge of this region of space has been invaluable. Admiral Parker leaned forward, her expression becoming more serious. Jake, I have to ask you something directly. Do you believe this?